All right, let's do the Rob Zombie Halloween films. Now, this is a film that is split down the middle when it comes to the horror community. Lovers, haters, every film has that, but this one really is. It's like 50-50, and I already know, doing this review, half of you are gonna be like, you're an idiot. So, whatever, my opinion's my opinion. So, first thing I wanna say about this movie is that I think Rob Zombie is a great director. I do not think he's a very good writer. He has strengths in his writing somewhere, especially when he's doing like something like a Devil's Rejects. That's inside his wheelhouse. But taking on a film like this, he's making every character like his characters that he normally writes. And they're all, you know, foul-mouthed, hillbilly type people. And while that works for the Devil's Rejects, it doesn't exactly work here, because you have Laurie Strode, and you have Annie Brackett, and you have Sheriff Brackett, and you have Dr. Loomis, and these are not characters that are rednecks. These are not characters that are, you know, foul-mouthed, uneducated, freaking rednecks. You know, they're just, and that's the way they're written. It feels like they went and they took characters from a trailer park and they stuck them in suburbia. And it makes it a very, very interesting watch, because it is tense, it is well shot, it is brutal, and the dialogue is just so rough on the ears. You're just like, oh God. Like, as I've said before, like, it's fine if a couple characters were like this. Like, Ronnie, I think, is the stepfather's, or whatever the hell he is, Judith Meyer's boyfriend or whatever in the opening. He could be like that. You know, have the orderly who rapes the chick be like that. But everybody, that's where it starts to lose, you know, me, because I'm just sitting there like, every character is the same. I feel like if I was to read all the characters' lines aloud, I couldn't differentiate between any of them. I would just be sitting there like, all right, well, you know, this character's talking about this, so it's probably female, but I don't know who. I don't know who this could be. I don't know if this is Annie. I don't know if this is this or that, because these characters are very, very one-dimensional, all of them. And I think, that's why when people hate on this film, I'm not like, oh, you're an idiot, you're just not getting it. I totally understand why people don't like this movie or the next one. But what I like about this movie, what I really like about this movie, because when it comes down to it, I really enjoy this film. And I think where that's proven to me, is, as far as like the whole dialogue versus action sequences, horror sequences, is the last act, like when Michael is finally pursuing Laurie and he takes her down in the basement and all, you know, up in the attic and all that stuff. That stuff is really good, honestly. Like, you can, of course, people will argue that and be like, no way, it's awful. Everything in this movie is awful. Okay, that's fine. That's your own opinion and whatever. But I personally think that stuff is excellent. And one of the main reasons is because there's like no dialogue in it. Like, that's just zombie filming horror. And the more of that, the better. So, anyway, let's get into the film itself. So, I do really like it, but I will agree the dialogue in this just doesn't fit. It doesn't fit the characters that have already been pre-established. This isn't Zombie's movie. This is him remaking Halloween, one of the most iconic classic horror films of all time. And I'm fine with him taking his whole new spin on it. I'm glad he made it his own. I always, you know, I don't want to see a remake of the first one. I've already seen that movie. I don't need to see frame by frame the Psycho thing. Awful. Okay, so make it your own, that's fine. But I'm not sure he was the best fit. Now, if someone had written this for him and he had directed it, I think it would be fucking fantastic. But his writing, ooh, okay. Anyway, now I have been to this house, the Myers house in this. You can see it in my Sinister Cinema Goes on the Road for 1,000 subscribers or whatever. It's a very cool house. Great pick for the house here. The opening title credit is just word, just text, boom, and then it goes into the movie. Really cool choice. I like that a lot. And I kind of see this remake as like a parallel universe kind of thing where we get to see more into it. Now, here's another thing where people just don't like this, and they don't like this ever. They don't want this in any kind of film. They don't want backstory. They don't want to make Michael or Jason or anybody like a average, everyday, psychopath or serial killer or whatever, where they have the abusive mom or the drunk dad or they were molested or whatever. And while I can understand that, I don't mind this because I'm a story guy. I like story in my films. And, the thing that's bizarre about this one is that Halloween, obviously, if you've watched my channel enough, I've talked about how much I love the movie and how it's been my favorite film since I was a kid, whatever. And it got me through a lot of my childhood. And I never knew Michael's backstory back then when I was watching, the 1978 Carpenter version. And then this version came out in 2007. And I went in, and the first 54 minutes of this movie is Michael's backstory. I mean, in the first movie, it's the first, 3-4 minutes? This one, it's 54. So it's dramatically longer. We don't even get to see Laurie Strode in this film until 54 minutes in. That's ballsy. And I respect that. And of course, people will disagree. Then that's fine. But anyway, what I found crazy about it, for just me personally, is that this storyline of Michael Myers, outside of the killing, of course, is extremely close to my childhood. I had a abusive stepfather who was always injured and could never work, literally never worked a day that he was with us, ever. He always just sat around and barked orders and whatever. And my mother was an exotic dancer or a stripper who let him do all this stupid shit. And then I had older siblings who just despised me. And then I had a younger brother who I rarely ever saw, but he was, he ended up being like my whole world. And so, I don't know, it was the way, for me personally, it was just like, they've taken my favorite character and they've given him my backstory. It was weird. It was surreal. It was almost like, what are they doing? Like, have they looked into my past? Of course, I'm just kidding, obviously. I don't think anybody fucking, did that. But it was bizarre. I was just like, wow, that's that's surprising. But anyway, so I think that might be why it worked for me. But the dialogue in that stuff, like especially Ronnie's character, oh my God, his dialogue is so like forced and written. Like everything he says is just always over the top hillbilly redneck bullshit. And you're like, oh, please. Like I get he's an awful person, but I don't know. Anyway, that stuff really brings it down. But then we get a lot of really cool things here. Like we get to see Michael stalking his first victim when he's a kid after this bully is abusing him and he takes him out. And this death of the bully, the Spy Kids kid, oh my God, I saw him. I was like, isn't that the little kid from Spy Kids? And now he's saying fuck this and beating kids' asses and whatever. I don't condone murder by any means, but bullies like that, I honestly believe in my heart they don't ever change. Like I feel like that kind of kid that we see in this movie, that Spy Kids, actor, freaking character, a person like that, I just honestly don't think they will ever be a good person. Like I think they'll be shitty forever. So maybe there's hope for people like that. I don't know. Anytime I've ever seen anybody like that in school or whatever, I've seen them later and they're always still pieces of shit. But yeah, that scene where he beats that fucking bully to death with a stick is vicious. Like, that kid is just coughing up blood, his teeth are all broken, and he's just like screaming, please, please, and he's crying, and he's like looking up at the sky, and he's like, you kind of almost get to see what he sees as he's dying. It's brutal, man. And people may not like that too. They took a franchise like Halloween, which the first one, if you're remaking the first one, is very, you know, against the gore. It has no real violence in it almost at all. And this one is like overboard, vicious, which I'm fine with. His mom in this movie, they almost try to make her seem like she's sympathetic, but she is a piece of shit, okay? The way she lets that dude talk to her kid and all that, oh my God. She sucks. I like that we get to see Loomis interact with Michael here. I like that we get to see, you know, the younger, hipper Loomis coming in and being like, talking to Deborah and being like, you know, this is, you know, here's what's wrong, and you need to see this right now. Like, this is what your kid's doing. This is going to lead to much bigger and worse things. And she just doesn't even hear it. Like, she gets home that night and Michael's like, wants to go out trick-or-treating. And she's like, I shouldn't even let you after the shit you pulled today. And he's like, oh, come on, Mom, please. And she's like, okay, calm down. Like, tomorrow things are going to change. And really? This little kid tortures and murders animals, takes their pictures, and she lets them go out trick-or-treating? Wow, you are one shitty-ass parent. She is just awful. And so his sister turns him down for, you know, she's like, screw off, and she goes upstairs to fuck her boyfriend. And he's just like, that's it. Like, that seems to be like the snapping point for him. Like, no trick-or-treating, you're all dead. And so he slits that guy's throat and goes up and stabs his sister and beats that guy with a baseball bat. This is a child, okay? This is a 10-year-old kid. They bumped it up from 6 to 10 here. But yeah, this is some vicious ass shit. An aluminum baseball bat to the head like 15 times and a little kid swinging it and a little kid stabbing his sister to death. This shit is gnarly, man. For real. The context of it is intense. And way more so than obviously in the original. That's just one 6-year-old kid stabbing his sister to death off screen. Like, this one's much more brutal. But of course, this is indicative of the times. It's always needs to be more when the years go on. The audiences become more and more desensitized and need the violence to be ramped up. Get a lot of nudity in this, so I'm on board. His sister and Linda and Danielle Harris herself, a goddess on the horror screen. I've been a big fan of Danielle Harris since Halloween 4. Always had a crush on her. I was like 6 when that movie came out. I think she was 9. And yeah, just seeing her in this as Annie was so cool. It's like, really? They're bringing her back and they're having her be Annie? How awesome is that? And then she has her sex scene. And I was like, it's like in heaven. It was fantastic. And the fact that he gets his Michael Myers mask here, I think there's a lot of changes here that I really enjoy and I think adds to this a lot. And the Myers mask being one of those things where, you know, he throws it on and he kills his sister with it, and then he goes and he buries it in the basement under the baseboards or whatever. And then he builds, you know, creates all these masks as he wants to hide his face. He thinks that he's ugly and it hides his ugliness. And then when he breaks out later, he goes and he finds his mask, and that mask has some kind of meaning and symbolism to it. Now, I keep talking about this, and I hate to do it, but I know they're so against stuff like that. But I like it. Why not? It's a new spin on it. It's fun. It doesn't taint the old version at all. Like, you still have that. If you hate this, just don't watch it. Watch the original. You're good to go. This is just some kind of parallel universe, as I've said before, and that's cool. I like that I get to have 2 different versions of this film. I just wish the dialogue was better. Yikes. Anyway, and I like that Laurie is addressed here. Like, we get to see Laurie is in this as a little baby, little Boo. They never say her name, even though I think we all knew it was Laurie. But it's not just conveniently shoehorned into the second film. Like, oh, by the way, she's his sister. Like, he made it his sister, but it never even really needs to be said all that much. Like, it's just kind of there, and it's for you to pick apart. Yes, you have the scene with Loomis and Brackett, and they're talking in the car, and he kind of explains it for people who might not have seen the original too. But I don't know, it doesn't seem as convoluted as the first. Now, where it is convoluted and is so silly, and the same with the first one, you still have the same problem, is how the hell did Michael know that was his sister, A, and the odds of her coming to the Myers house the day that he's there is so stupid. But it's in the first one, so I think this is, he's kind of at liberty here to do that, because it's just like, yeah. Now, I guess real quick I'll talk about, I like that we get to see Michael Myers in Smith Grove Sanitarium for like a while. We get to see Michael as a kid breaking down. We get to see Michael talk, which I just did not expect in this movie. And he talks like right off the bat. As soon as the movie starts, I was like, oh, we're going to have Michael talk, which makes sense. I mean, in the original, I'm sure Michael talked all the way up until that night. So it was cool to see him talk, and then he has no memory of it at all, which was interesting. Like, it's almost like he just kind of disappears when he becomes Michael, and that would explain how he kind of goes in and out of being Michael and being the killer, because throughout the original series, that's kind of how it went, where people would say Michael, or something would happen, or Uncle, can I see, or whatever stupid shit, and Michael would kind of stop, and he'd pause, and it would almost be like triggering like Michael Myers inside, and not the psychopathic murderer that he is. This just, unrelenting killing machine that can't be stopped. And we get to see Deborah visiting her kid while he's in there, and visiting your kid in prison after they've murdered your family. I don't know, man. I thought about this now. I don't know if I've watched this since I've had my kids, but I don't know. I don't know how I'd deal with that. Like, if my kid killed my other kid, and my, the mother of my kids, or all that. I don't know. I don't know how I don't know. I guess it would have to be other circumstances. I don't know how I would respond to that. Like, I don't know if I could go and see them and be like, I love you, and ooh, that one's tough. So, but I don't know. I'm a pretty great parent, I think, and this mother's shit. So she kind of has it even worse than me, because she's got to be like, there's a lot of this is my fault, if not all of it. Not all of it. He obviously has some, some shit that made him this way. But all right. So yeah, he is in Smith Grove Sanitarium, and we have this. I think this is honestly one of the best scenes in the movie, is when he's stabbing the nurse and the alarm is going off, and it's all in silence. The only thing you hear is the alarm, and it just keeps cutting to like Deborah screaming, and Loomis of just being completely dumbfounded by what has just happened, and Michael freaking out and raging, and the orderlies trying to hold him back, and all that stuff. That stuff is excellent. That's very artistic. It's very well done. As I said, I think he does really great pieces. Just, you already know what I'm going to say on the just. And so then we fast forward 15 years later, after Deborah kills herself, which I thought was kind of cool to see his parent take their life. Like, because we don't really know what happens to Michael's parents. But we do in this one, and it makes a lot of sense. So then finally we move up to Michael being an adult, and Michael is a monster. He's 6'10", which, whatever, it's fine. It makes him definitely more intimidating. Like, if you saw that versus a Nick Castle, who was probably like 6 feet or 5'10" or something, almost a 7 foot tall dude coming at you with a butcher's knife, is going to be a lot scarier than someone who's much smaller, for sure. Both would be scary, but not that that adds anything or anything. It doesn't take anything away. I'm not gonna be like, oh my god, Nick Castles was so much better, or wow, what an incredible decision. It's just one of those things like, all right, it's a big Michael this time. He's very big, so it's fine. And then this is one of those things where you have the director's cut versus the theatrical cut. There are things in the director's cut that I prefer, and there are things in the theatrical cut that I prefer. I prefer the theatrical version of how Michael escapes when he's being transported by the guards. Bill Moseley is one of them, and he, breaks the chains. You saw it in the trailer. I remember one of the first trailers that this had. I saw that in there. I was like, that's badass. Like, this is cool. And then I saw it in the theater, and that's what it was. And I was like, all right. And then I bought the Blu-ray, and there was this fucking rape scene. And I'm not like somebody who's weak-stomached or any of that shit where I'm like, oh my god, it's a rape scene. How dare you? This is too over the top. Well, it is over the top. It is too much. Like, I don't care. I'm not like, oh my god. But it's just so fucking obvious. I don't know. It's like he's going through the checklist of like, what are all the awful things I can do? All right, I got to throw rape in here. How am I going to get rape in here? I got to shock the audience some more. It's like, I don't need a rape sequence in here. I just don't. Like, it's just to add that extra, like, oh my god, Rob Zombie's so crazy. He does such fucking, insane films. I don't like this version. I don't like that. But I do like the scene where it says like trick or treat across the screen and he's like standing up on the deck. That's in this version and it's not in the theatrical version. So there's things. It's kind of a give and take. I'd like to make an edited version, edit all my pieces together that I like. And Loomis seems to set him off. Once he leaves, like Michael is, all right, I guess I'm breaking out and killing everyone. Danny Trejo's character, I think, is there to show the audience that Michael has no compassion at all. It doesn't matter. Like, he keeps saying, like, I was good to you, Mikey. I was good to you. And it's sad. It's sad as shit. And you don't usually see Danny Trejo play these kinds of characters. He's usually the badass, and he's like this old man who's about to retire, and he's like the sweetest guy in the movie. He's like the only person who isn't a hick in this movie. And he's usually the one who plays like the biggest one in Rob Zombie's movies, or bikers, should I say. But yeah, I guess we just kind of get to see that so that the audience can be like, oh, Mike's not playing around. There's no getting through to this guy. He's lost it. It doesn't matter how nice you've been. It doesn't matter who you are. He's going to fuck you up. Then we finally get to Laurie. And Laurie is almost, immediately established as not Jamie Lee Curtis's Laurie Strode. Like, she's fucking a bagel with her finger and being like, he touched me the wrong way, mommy, and all this stuff. And even later when she's talking to, Annie, and Ben Tramer's brought up, she's not, she doesn't have an aversion to this. She's just like, oh, I thought you said Ben Tramer was retarded. And she's like, oh, well, he said you're fucking hot. And she's like, you need a boyfriend. And she's like, basically, like, you need to get fucked. And Laurie's like, I do need to get fucked. Like, that's what they're saying. I mean, they don't say those exact words, but that is what they're saying. So they're really just trying to make this one so much different. And if I remember correctly, I thought I read, I haven't watched a lot of behind the scenes feature stuff on this, but I'm pretty sure I remember reading that Scout Taylor Compton had never seen the original Halloween, and Rob Zombie didn't want her to, because he didn't want her to copy her in the slightest. He wanted this to be completely her own thing, which I completely respect and understand. But yeah, it's like instantaneous. Like, oh, this ain't the good girl Laurie at all. Little Tommy Doyle in this is the kid from Santa Clarita Diet, which I love that show. If you haven't watched that show, it's hilarious. And we got Christina Klebb here playing Linda, which was pretty cool because I love that chick. We got Brad Dourif playing Sheriff Brackett, which was awesome. It's fucking Brad Dourif. How can you not like it? We get some really bad teen sex in here. which I'm glad that that was kind of addressed because, oh my God, Halloween has some of the worst teen sex of all time. You have Judith and her dude, and then Linda and Bob, their sex is dreadful. It's like 5 seconds long. And this one got the same thing. It's awful, but it's actually like brought up and made fun of and whatever. So I thought that was a kind of a little fun thing. And then another decision that I really liked, and this makes a little more sense, is that, you know, Bob is the one actually coming into the room to try to scare Linda with the sheet on and the glasses over. And Michael sees that, kills him, and takes his idea. Like, Michael didn't come up with it himself. I like that he kind of is just playing around and pretending to be Bob. But how Linda doesn't realize that Bob wasn't 6'10" when he left. I'm pretty sure the dude who's filling the entire door frame, yes, he's kind of cocked down. He like kind of puts his arm, but that is not Bob. Okay, that dude is huge. There's no way she thought that was Bob. But who knows? She might just be so out of it and just like, whatever, I don't care. She's not even paying attention to him. And then the last, like, he kills everybody. We get to see everyone kind of beaten down and killed. I love that Annie actually survives this and is in the next movie. But we then get the last act of the movie, which is just Laurie being pursued. And I think all that is great. I really do. Like, while I was watching this, like, once it hit that part, all the way to the end, I was, like, totally into it. I was like, this is awesome. Like, it was almost nothing bad that I could say about the whole last act there. So, you know, that bumps the movie up. You can have a whatever okay beginning and middle and then an awesome end, and that movie's pretty damn good. Like, that's how movies work for me anyways. Even though I do like a lot of things that happen in the first 2 acts there, this third act was excellent for me. And I like that, you know, I like when he knocks Laurie out, like the cop shoots him and he comes at the cop and then comes back and he knocks Laurie out. God, that shit's so good. That good stuff is so good. The horror, the tension, the pursuit, all that is really well done. Anyway, he knocks Laurie out and then he carries her like he does Annie's body when Tommy Doyle's looking out the window in part 1, the original 78 version. We get to see him walk out the door, and then he's walking down the street with her as her head's like bobbing and her legs. I think that's probably my favorite shot in the entire film. I don't know what it is about it. I love it. It was in the original trailer. I loved it in that. I loved it in the film. Awesome stuff. And then Laurie wakes up, and this time Linda is laid out in front of the Myers grave. This is Deborah's grave this time, and it's not his sister's. But Laurie wakes up and she doesn't know what the hell's going on, and he comes and he shows her a picture. And this, I feel like, because we already know it's his sister, the first one didn't, and he was just a killer. It actually, I don't know. I like it. I like that, you know, there is some kind of purpose to it, that we don't know what he's trying to achieve here. We will never know, but he's trying to get through to her. He's trying to show her, like, it's Michael. Like, remember me? I used to be your brother and I loved you and I could have killed you that night when you were a baby, but I didn't because you're the only good thing in my life. That's, you know, but he loves his mom too. He doesn't try to kill her. But, like, he wanted his sister back, and when she rejects him by taking the knife and stabbing him, I don't know what he would have done. I don't know if he would have just sat there and she would have, like, gave him a hug. I don't think that he would have ever, like, just been like, okay, I'm done. Like, I think he'd still be a psychopath. I think he would still try to kill people. I just don't know if he would have ever tried to kill her until she attacks him. And then when she attacks him, she sticks the knife through, you know, his shoulder. I think that's when he's like, you betrayed me. Now you're just like everybody else. You must die. And he chases her and he comes through the thing, and she's like trying to get through the gate, and he comes through the wall, and she goes and she falls into the pool. Wow, being trapped in that pool would suck because there literally is no way out. Like, she is too short. There's no way she could have got out of that thing, and she is just like a freaking animal trapped in a little, you know, hole that someone dug or something. Oh my God, that would be terrifying. And then Michael gets shot, and then they go into the car, and he bursts through the window and pulls her out, and he's screaming. This stuff is so tense. And then they run back upstairs, and he beats freaking Loomis down, crushes his head. She runs up into the thing. She gets up into the ceiling. He's like breaking up the roof with the 2x4. She's got the gun. She falls out. He runs at her. Boom. She comes down, shoots his fucking face. Blood splatters all over her. She's just screaming. They're showing pictures of them as kids. It's fucking intense and awesome. So I love all that stuff. So that's what elevates this film for me, ultimately. Like, the whole first hour and a half is rocky. It's kind of like, oh, that was cool. That was cool. Nah. Like, it was just all over the place. And then this last act really sealed it. So yeah, I actually made this one much shorter. This was fucking 16 minutes shorter than what? Halloween 5 review? That's crazy. I think I said everything I want to say about this. I feel like anything else more would just be me being redundant with stuff, which I think I've already done a couple times. But I don't know if I said this or not, but I've been to the house. I started the review a few times, recorded like a minute and then shut it off, and I was like, no, that's not the way I want to do it. So I don't know if I said that, but I did a road trip thing. You can look for it on here. I saw this house, really cool. And yeah, so I'm going to try to watch Halloween 2 tonight, but I got another film to watch, so I'm not sure 100%, but I'm going to get to that. And I will tell you up front, I do really like that movie. So I know a lot of people despise it, and I will probably be like, I'll look like the next day after I do it, and I'll have like 500 less subscribers. But whatever, man. I'm not going to fucking lie about what I like. So anyway, guys, all right.